Hello. Um, I just want to get another Yap video out there. I'm really sick right now. Like it's not good. um, but is this audio fine? I don't know. I'm not editing this video or anything. Um, uh, what is happening to me? Hold on. Okay. As you can probably tell by what I title this video, I want to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's and the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. I don't intend to be, I don't intend for this video to be long. Before we start, Rosie, her model has started work. The new profile picture's in place. No idea when she's gonna finish. It just depends. But yeah. So, the Five Nights at Freddy's community is still one of the biggest ones in indie horror. There's no question about that. And I am still a somewhat fan of Five Nights at Freddy's as a franchise and as a game. Nowhere near what I used to be with it, but that is because over time I've found better games. On my personal ranking of, like indie horrors, mascot horrors, Five Nights at Freddy used to be number 1, but it has dropped down to 3rd now to the likes of Bendy and the Ink Machine and Poppy Playtime. And I was having this conversation with one of the Eternal Heart team members a few days ago, or it was like yesterday, last night, I'm pretty sure. We were talking about the current state of Five Nights at Freddy's, and I shared my opinion that if I believe personally that Five Nights at Freddy's should end at this point, or they should take the approaches to where they're able to allow it to end. My reasoning for this is basically regarding the current state of the FNAF franchise and the lore. So, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If I give any information that isn't correct, please feel sure to absolutely flame me in the comments, because I don't think I know the full thing, but I know most of it, I believe. So, when Five Nights at Freddy's first launched, Five Nights at Freddy's 1, it was because Scott was getting criticism on his other games, mainly Chipper and Sons, I'm pretty sure, Chipper's Tycoon, whatever it's called. People were saying it was scary. So Scott decided to actually make a horror game and made Five Nights at Freddy's. The game took off, and he realised he could make something with this, because the first game didn't have lore. So he started making a storyline. But Scott, at this time, from Five Nights at Freddy's 1 all the way up to Ultimate Custom Night, was writing his own lore and making his own games. He was a solo developer. Now, in case you don't know, working alone on a project that is as big as FNAF, or just any big project, if you are working alone on it, writing things for it and developing it, it can be extremely difficult to, actually pull off and put together. I had the same thing with Eternal Heart. That is why I brought people in, such as Poof and Weaver. Poof being the assistant scriptwriter and Weaver being head of feedback. But Scott didn't have this, and he only got it when Help Wanted... Was it Help Wanted? The VR game, the first VR game. When that came out, Scott got help, because he collaborated with Steelwall, and they helped make the games. He was still writing the lore, sure, but Steelwall was a massive help. And the first Steelwall games, like the VR game, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. But then Security Breach came out. Now, I want to put something into perspective. The Scott line of games left a lot of questions unanswered for the FNAF lore. There was a lot of things we still didn't know, like a few characters were to the lore, what was in the box, that's a big one, and other things. They were left unanswered in the Scott lore. And then Ultimate Custom Night came out, and it didn't really answer many. It answered a few questions, but not all of them. So the The Scott Games came to an end, where Scott had stopped making games himself, and sure, we'd had a lot of questions on the lore answered through the games, but we also had more questions unanswered. And then Steelwall came out, and they released Five Nights at Freddy's VR, Help Wanted, which was a really good game, and it answered a good amount of questions, but also added some new questions, like Glitch Trap, for example. And then they could have built on it and started, answering some. Basically, what I believe they should have done is made games that answered the questions from the Scott era, just to clarify that part of the lore, and then continue making games. But they released Security Breach, and as you know, that game was really hyped when it was seen in the trailers on PlayStation's Direct, I believe it's called. But then it came out and it was a glitchy mess, and it didn't make sense, because the way Scott actually did it, he didn't give Steelwall the entire lore. He gave them bits and told them to work it out themselves, and Steelwall got the lore wrong, meaning the game's lore was wrong. And Steelwall, Scott and Security Breach took a really big hit from that because it didn't make sense, and the bugs and the lag and the non-optimization was also causing a lot of issues. After this, there was the entire thing with Security Breach being bad, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe after this, Ruin introduced? I don't fully remember. I don't know if you can hear my mum's in the background, so I don't know if it's picking up, just ignore it if you can hear it. But yeah, I believe Ruin came out, and Ruin was really well received because it fixed up Security Breach. Everything that was wrong with Security Breach, it sorted all that, and it was good. It was a lot more optimised, the lore made sense. And then Secret of the Mimic came out. I might be missing one. I think VR2 came out, but I don't really remember that one. Mimic was the next, really big title. And honestly, Secrets of the Mimic, I do enjoy it. The lore is a lot more understandable. Steelwall is clearly starting to, fully get their footing now with the FNAF franchise, and that is good to see. But my current view on FNAF is that, sure, it has dominated as the face of indie mascot horror for a long time, but it is getting to a stage where I believe FNAF has to end at some point. I have the same view of Poppy Playtime. I was really mad when Chapter 5 wasn't the last chapter, because Poppy Playtime is getting to a state where it physically cannot continue, and I believe that FNAF is doing the same. They have a bunch of questions still unanswered, which are probably never going to be answered, and they're starting entire new storylines just to keep games coming out, which I don't believe is the right way. I believe they should make games that focus on the questions that weren't answered, and then only when they've answered all the old questions, then they can decide, do we A, want to end Five Nights at Freddy's and send it off and give it a good ending, or do we want to continue games where we make a new game, put all these mysteries in it, then make a game after that makes more mysteries but answers half of the mysteries from the other game, so they can keep the questions that people may have controlled, unlike what it is currently, where the lore is currently a mess and there are still a lot of unanswered questions. Now, is Steelwall going to do this? Is Scott going to do this? I highly doubt it. They're going to keep continuing with what they're doing, which honestly isn't going to help them much. Don't get me wrong, FNAF still has a really big following, and that is good to see. But because Steelwall has taken over, they are getting a lot of complaints, a lot of controversy. I believe the most recent one was with one of the trailers for Secret of the Mimic VR, because they included Fredbear in it. and people thought it was a new game, and it turns out it was just a VR port for Secret the Mimic, and people were calling it clickbait. So yeah, the current state of the FNAF franchise, it's 50-50 for me, it's hit and miss. I do like the game a little bit, somewhat, but it has 100% fallen down from number one spot for me. And comparing it to, like, you know, Bendy and Ink Machine, which is my all-time favourite indie horror game, FNAF is just kind of there at this point. It had its time in my life, and now it's just, you know, kind of fell down, and it's not really one of the big titles I think about. It's just kind of there. If Steelwool was to, you know, go back and make games that fixes Scott's Law and answers the questions, I feel like it could move up. It would be really good. Maybe it will still stay at third, but I might value it a little more. But yeah, that's this yap session over. I'm gonna try and get better for the next video. I'll try and finish Rosie at some point. Woody, I don't even know if I said it. Woody has gave me the green light to work on Rosie. But yeah, that is about it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video when I'm hopefully a little bit better. Bye!